Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Like I said, we have a fantastic guest here with us. Heather Antos has joined us, and we are going to get to her in just a second. But first things first, this portion of the episode is sponsored by, unofficially, they don't know it yet, but they will as soon as we post on Instagram, the Vale Brewing Company out of Virginia, a double raspberry Goza coming in at 5.1%. It's pretty thick. Yeah, you see that, Lauren? Look at that thing. It's nice and beautiful red. I wasn't going to drink today, but then Lauren peer pressured me. And so here I am drinking this in this episode. Lauren, what you got?
So since we were recording a day before St. Patrick's Day, I'm actually drinking a Guinness, but this is no normal Guinness. This is the Nitro Cold Brew Coffee Guinness. And it is absolutely fantastic because it still has that beautiful nitro head on it, but it smells just like cold brew coffee. And if you love the smell of coffee and you like beer, definitely check this one out. I mean, you can get it at Publix, any grocery store, whatever, but this is fantastic. And I will be buying this again and not just on St. Patrick's Day. And at only 4%, I can drink multiple ones. I know it's pretty low for you. You're usually pounding the 9%, and I'm over here with like the 4%. So I'm a little impressed. I'm trying to pace myself. Worried? Impressed? Growing up, maturing. I do need to. I think I'm on the fence. I think I'm going to get to family business for you next weekend. We'll see. I might. What? We'll see how it goes. Shouldn't say things like that if you don't know for sure. I don't know. I'm scared. But like I mentioned, we do have a really great guest. So Heather, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you let everybody know kind of who you are? And then if you're drinking something, go ahead. What you got?
Yeah, I'm Heather Antos. Like you said, that's really all there is to know about me.
Surprise.
That's it. We're done. No. I am a senior editor currently at IDW Publishing, where I make those funny books for a living. I've been in comics for a long time, touched a lot of different characters. I guarantee if you read comics, you have read my work, even if you don't know it. And I am drinking a High Noon right now because it's been a hard day making comics and I wanted to drink some hard stuff without, feeling like I'm drinking some hard stuff.
That's kind of why I grabbed the Goza, because sometimes it's always nice to have like a sour beer, because there's those times where I'm in the mood where I just don't want the beer taste, I guess. I don't know. That makes sense.
Well, High Noon has actual coffee in it, right?
No, High Noon is vodka.
Oh, it's vodka.
Even better.
Yeah, High Noon is fruit juice and vodka. So,
nice. I've seen the can many times, but I've never tried it.
Yeah, it's like it's your basic. I mean, think of your basic seltzer, right? But it's a little more high end because it's not sugar alcohol. It's like your White Claws are. It's vodka, and I think it's a smoother taste than like your White Claws or your other seltzers out there. But that's
is it less bubbly?
A little less. There's just a little. I think because, vodka is a higher end alcohol in general, and it's with actual fruit juice rather than like artificial flavoring. It's a smoother blend of flavors rather than you have that like carbonated chemical taste of the seltzer mixed with the like, this is, artificial watermelon flavoring. Right.
It tastes like bubble gum.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's, no shade to the other ones. It's just my favorite.
Don't worry. We throw unofficial shade all the time here to other things. So you're good.
Especially like big beer. I throw shade to big beer a lot.
We do. That's fair. So I can tell you right away, you had a hand in a lot of my favorite comic books, such as the 2015, like Darth Vader run, Star Wars runs, things like that. So I'm wicked excited to be able to talk with you and just have you on here. But we have some questions before we get into those. We got to know, what is your kind of geek origin story? Like, what were your favorite comics growing up? What got you into comic books and all that kind of things?
Oh my goodness. I don't like, it's just who I am. I don't know. Like there was never like a coming into geekdom or anything for me. I was reading chapter books before I hit kindergarten. My mom says I was drawing comics before I knew what comics were. I participated. I was just always an avid reader. Like I did a lot. I learned this about myself. A podcast I recorded a couple weeks ago. I did a lot of reading competitions as a kid, which I didn't realize was as common of a thing until I like sat and thought about how many I did. So, always reading, always drawing. I grew up with, watching TNG, Star Trek, Star Wars, obviously. And the Adam West Batman television show was like one of my favorite things.
Oh, yeah.
Growing up. And so, this like comic book world was just kind of always a part of my life. But it wasn't until after I graduated college that I was like, oh, I want to do that for a living. But yeah, it's just like, just kind of who I am. Like, I don't really know.
No,
So were your
parents
into Star Wars and Star Trek and comic books?
Nope. Not at all.
So you were just by chance, you like ended up, because like for me, it was like when I was, 13, my mom set me down and was like, you're watching Star Wars now. And so I had to be like kind of, and a lot of it I didn't get into until adult because nobody handed me a comic book when I was little and I wasn't around anybody who was into it. So you just kind of stunned. I know a lot of kids, though, or I shouldn't say we're not kids anymore. A lot of grownups got into comics with
Speak
the 90s
for yourself.
animated X-Men and whatnot.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually never watched the 90s animated X-Men until I was an adult because that's one that like gets brought up to me all the time. And I actually worked on the X-Men 92 comics before I watched
Oh, wow.
X-Men.
Wow, I have some of those in my son's room.
Oh, nice. But yeah, I like my dad like introduced me way too young to James Bond. And like Indiana Jones and by proxy of that, Star Wars.
There goes Star Wars. Okay.
But like, I mean, my mom is your stereotypical Midwestern, church lady. My dad just like works a normal office IT job, like they're not really fandom geek people. Mm-hmm.
The little bit you were exposed to, you kind of clung to.
I think it's through that escapism. Like I've always had an avid imagination. And so by reading a lot, right? Like there was always all these stories of these relatable characters and these like crazy adventures that they were on that, for someone growing up in a town where you hung out when you were bored was Walmart. Those stories are very appealing.
It makes sense. It like offers an escape out of here, because it's everyone's like, I got to get out of my hometown. And in your case, you're like, we're hanging out at the Walmart. What am I doing? And that does give you an escape. Yeah.
What town did you grow up in? Now I'm curious.
It's a small town called Niles, Michigan. That for the this is a podcast, so y'all can't see this, but if you hold up the hand to the Michigan thing, it's the most southwest corner, right on Lake Michigan. Okay. So if you have a clear day on the lake, you could see Chicago across.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm vaguely familiar with Michigan. I've been there a couple times. My wife's from West Bloomfield originally, so
got
very acquainted.
East side of the state, but yeah. Yep.
So that's
like it's got to be a really nice Walmart.
It was a super center.
You could spend hours in there and get lost.
Okay.
Well, me and my friends, again, this is how bored we would get. We tried to spend a consecutive 24 hours in the Walmart.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Did you ever do it?
We didn't. No, we got kicked out at like hour 17 because we fell asleep, but we tried.
Wow.
That's like what the kids do today, like with challenges, like the YouTubers and stuff. And you were doing it before it was cool.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, this is the safe way to do those challenges. Kids these days are doing like crazy challenges, whereas like back in the day, it's like, I feel like that's even more hardcore. 24 hours in a Walmart. Like, what do you even do at that point?
You fall asleep?
Yeah. I mean, they do have the nice beanbag chairs and things more often on the, so you just pull them down to like.
You set all the alarm clocks for the same time, and some of them you can eat at, and I'm sure you could easily get lost. You could play video games in some of them too.
Oh, back in I do miss those back in the day where they had like the video game stations set up and you can go and you can play like PlayStation 1, all that kind of stuff. Those are the days. I don't see those anymore. I guess we don't do that.
Yeah, that was a really cool origin story, I have to say. So going from that, because usually everybody has a pinpoint, like they can, I know the first thing that I fell in love with, and you're like, I was just born this way. So moving on, though, you said you didn't know you wanted to write comics until after college. So what's your professional origin story? Like, where did you start right after college?
Yeah, so my whole life growing up, my dream was always to work in theater and film professionally. And I did that throughout college. I toured with the Michigan Shakespeare Festival. I worked on like the sets of Real Steel and Transformers and a bunch of the films that were being filmed in Michigan at the time. And, you know, like college, you know, like it got towards the end of college and I just kind of got like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm kind of over it. I don't really care for the people in these industries. So, you know, there's nothing more exciting than quitting your passion, right, as you enter adulthood, right? Like, this is the thing I've been studying for the last 20 years. Oh, well.
Better to know now than before you work 20 years in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true.
100%. But like, oh my God, so anxiety inducing.
Yeah.
But one of my good friends at the time was like, well, you really like comics. Why don't you just do that? You know, as if that's just like the easiest thing to just drop and pursue. But, you know, like that was my aha moment. That was my real eureka moment of like, oh shit, yeah, people get paid to make these. You know, and that had never been like an option presented to me as someone who grew up in a small town in the Midwest. It's not like on career day, oh, we just happen to have the writer of Batman comes in. Like, that doesn't really happen unless you happen to live in the same town as the writer of Batman.
I grew up outside of Boston and it didn't happen there either. So
there you go. So I just began kind of like researching what are careers in the comic book industry and how can I find one? And I really like to write, but I knew I didn't want to be a writer. I really like to draw, but the idea of like having to draw as much as like a comic artist has to draw, like was terrifying. But I happened to notice that a lot of the comics that I read had the same editors across multiple different series. And I thought that was really interesting to me, that whatever it is that this person does, there's something that resonates with me. And I knew what an editor did in like a traditional publishing house when you're working with a single writer to, you know, publish a manuscript. But in comics, there's so many other roles involved that I was kind of fascinated and wanted to know more. So I did what any good millennial does, and I started tweeting editors on the internet just to kind of be like, hey, I'm really interested in learning more about what it is you do. And Twitter, luckily, wasn't as much of a hellscape as it
Oh my God. Do you remember Twitter, like back in the day, how you could actually have discussions and now it's just a nightmare?
Or people would just like, you know, almost like when Facebook was originally a thing and people were just like, I just had a sandwich. And that was their tweets, right?
Like I think I'm going to go to the mall today.
And you get those on your memories and you're like, why did I write this?
Yeah. Or when everything was in third person, right? Those are my favorite.
Yeah.
But Jordan White, who was an associate editor at Marvel at the time, happened to respond to me. And it just so happened he was going to be at C2E2 the same time, that, like just the next month I was going to be there. And he agreed to sit down and talk with me.
Oh, sweet.
And we chatted for an hour. And I left that convention knowing this is it. This is what I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. Because at the time I had already graduated college. So I couldn't get an internship. Most publishers, you know, require you to be able to get it for college credit. So I decided I was going to kind of give myself my own internship, my own boot camp, my own like editorial workshop of comics editing to just see if I even liked it, if I even could do it. Because I wasn't about to just pack my bags and move to New York on a whim just to see maybe
it
if
works
it would
in the
happen.
movies, but
but I ended up spending that summer putting together a giant comic book anthology called Unlawful Good, an anthology of crime that at the time ended up becoming one of the most successful Kickstarters on comic Kickstarters for the platform at that time. It's just like 10 years ago. But so sorry, Brandon Sanderson's 30 million kicks my butt now.
Listen,
but
just realize it was a whole different world in 10 years ago. I mean, come on.
I know. But yeah, I put together this giant anthology with, you know, where I was managing 17 stories by like 50 different creators from literally all over the world. And, you know, fast forward 6 months, it's October, New York Comic Con. I'm there kind of just like to network and meet as many people as I can. And I happened to run into Jordan White again. And I show him like, look, this is what I've done since the last time we talked. And he said to me, you know, would you ever be interested in moving to New York? And I said, yes. 1 month later, he reached out and I was interviewing with Marvel. And 2 months later, I moved across the country and started working for them.
That's awesome.
That is,
you got to put yourself out there, even if it seems silly on Twitter, exactly. You got to do it.
It's one of the more interesting, it's definitely the more interesting side of the story. Cause usually with comic books, we've interviewed a bunch of people from, you know, Valiant creators to just in their stories is Kickstarters. We did this, we put ourselves out through Facebook, but yours is like, no, I busted my ass. And then by random fate, almost, it's like, I ran into this person again and guess what? It worked out. And you don't really hear a lot of that these days. I almost feel like,
it just goes to show that, like, you know, all luck is being prepared when opportunity strikes. Because I very well could have just run into him again and just be like, oh, hey, good to see you. And that could have been it, you know, but I did the work, and that's so much of it. And that's what I talk to, you know, about creators who are trying to break in, you know, is you have to do the work. It's not just like wanting to do it. It's not just like showing up and being eager. That is a lot of it. That is important. But, you know, showing, hey, this is what I've done. This is how I've improved. This is how I've motivated myself since the last time we spoke, because, you know, comics are grueling. It's hard. It's, you know, and, it's a very, very small industry. And, you know, my job as an editor, when I'm hiring people, I want to work with people who want to work. That's really important.
So as far as the editorial side, then how does your job in the comic book process different from, obviously it differs because you're not writing the comics, you're not drawing them, but how is it a little bit different, or is the process kind of similar? Like what goes behind that process? Yeah.
So, I mean, every comic is a small miracle that comes out. And, you know, I think so much of my job is being flexible with the creators that I work. You know, there are some creators that I work with who, like, leave them alone. They're going to hit their deadlines. What's going to turn in is going to be great. And all you have to do is check in once in a while, right? Like that's the dream. Often not the case, but that happens. But, you know, my job is part-time showrunner of a TV show, part-time therapist, part-time project manager, part-time babysitter. Like, you know, like there's a lot of different hats that editors wear. You know, at the end of the day, we are creative project managers. We are giving feedback on everything from outlines to scripts to layouts to pencils to inks to colors to letters to cover design to marketing copy to, you know, press releases to, and it goes on and on and on. We're also moderating panels at Comic-Cons. We're also out there soliciting talent and looking at new creators to possibly work with, all while trying to manage the creators we're already working with to hit their deadlines, not just for this book, but for the rest of the books in the series, you know, for 15 different projects at a time. So there's a lot going on.
Right.
It's busier than people think. That's exactly how it is.
Well, and then as a consumer, you know, we get irritated like, well, why isn't Oblivion Song last episode or issue out yet? Like it was supposed to be out here. And it's like, because people have lives and things come up and it's like one little bump in the road. And it's like, we have to be patient. But I mean, that's got to be frustrating as all hell. But going from working with Kickstarters to then being at Marvel, is there anything that kind of took you by surprise as like do's and don'ts?
I think, I don't know if there's anything that necessarily super took me by surprise. You know, having worked, it's funny, like the film industry and like comics are very, very similar in a lot of ways. Just vastly different budgets.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, like I think the biggest thing that I had to learn very, very quickly. And I see a lot of creators and editors like who've been in this profession for a long time struggle with is your fandom can't come first. It can't. You know, my job as a creator is to create the very best book that I can with the best creators that I can in the timeline that I'm given. And, you know, you have to be able to compartmentalize. Oh my God, I'm working with J.J. Abrams on this book. You know, you have to be able to, like, there's still someone who's hired to do a job, you know, and of course there are certain creators, depending on if it's a creator owned thing or IP or like whatever the, you know, the public relations are, all these different, you know, kind of like internal politics stuff that you have to do. But like, there's a lot of egos to balance.
Oh, yeah.
But also like you can't care. Like you can't let, like a lot of times this, having worked on a lot of big licenses that I have over my career, I'm actually like training a new editorial assistant right now. I'm like kind of teaching her how I deal with licensors is, you know, like our relationship is obviously very important with the licensor, right? Like they, at the end of the day, have the gavel on whether or not we get to publish their license.
Right.
But you can't care to a certain extent. And it's all about learning how to communicate and negotiate those relationships. Like my job is to create the best Star Wars book that I possibly can. Lucasfilm's job is to tell me no. That's the relationship. Their job is to tell me, no, you can't do that. So my job is to like figure out how to get them to say yes to what it is I want to do. It's not necessarily to do whatever it is they tell me to do. It's how do I convince them and make them think it was their idea.
Right. Especially if you're working with a big title like, you know, Lucasfilm. I mean, at this point, I'm sure a lot of them are like, oh, we know Star Wars better than everybody else. And so it might be harder for them to listen to other people's ideas, kind of like you're saying, like to convince them, hey, this was their idea the whole time. And do you kind of find yourself like taking almost the over, like shooting way over from what you actually want to get just to kind of work back to where you want them to get to say yes?
Sometimes. I mean, I've learned a lot of tricks of the trade over the years, and, you know, every licensor is different. Every person is different. There's a lot of experiential wisdom that comes into play. There's a lot of, you know, having worked with, again, Lucasfilm for nearly a decade, like, I know how to work them pretty well, and I know when to throw a bone. I know when to give in. I know, you know, whatever. But there's a lot of like basic human psychology that comes into play with working, not just with licensors, but with any creator, with any sales team, with any publisher, with any, you know, marketing person to try and sell them on what it is you want.
You're going to make everybody happy.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, we've all heard the South Park method, where you purposely put something in a pitch or in an issue that you know no one is going to approve, just so you can get something through.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I was saying. Like,
yeah, like, and that's something that people do in all forms of media. You know, comics as well. Like,
oh, my kids do that.
Yeah, it's you ask for the elephant so you can get the puppy. You know.
Yeah.
And another thing, you know, another fun trick I'll put out there for anyone who might be listening is when people are presented options, they feel like they have to select one. And so, you know, for example, if you're trying to get a cover sketch through and you only send one sketch and they immediately go, well, I don't like that sketch, you're kind of screwed because now they don't like the one thing you presented. But if you present them two options, then they'll be like, oh, well, I like this one more than that one. And so they feel compelled to pick that one.
Nice. I like that.
Even if it's a just slightly zoomed in version. That's something I do all the time.
You like this one, but what about this one at 5 times the zoom?
Exactly.
Well, this one's more detailed then.
Intense.
Right.
So having worked with Marvel and Star Wars, do you find that one's stricter than the other? Because we all know like Marvel is very different in the movies and the TV shows versus the comic books, and we don't consider any of the comic books canon to the MCU. Whereas Star Wars, I feel like they're pulling a lot of that stuff from the comics and making it canon. So have there been more rules with Star Wars, or is it the same kind of creative play?
I mean, So for Star Wars, when it comes to any license, one of the first questions I always ask is, how does this license treat canon? And that's one of the things that I'm very grateful of in my career, getting to start working on both Star Wars and Marvel at the same time, is I got to see how two very major entertainment companies treat storytelling and how they approach it. And so I got to learn two different approaches at the same time. And like with Marvel, Marvel's been doing comics for 80 years. Like they've got this down. They know what they're doing. And their philosophy on canon is, the comics are their one canon, the TV shows are their own canon, the games exist in their own, like everything kind of exists in their own corner of the multiverse.
Yeah.
And,
until May 6th.
Right. And you might see touch points, right? Like obviously when Dormammu appeared as a villain in Doctor Strange, he suddenly appeared in the comic books around the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like you'll have touch points like that, but they aren't necessarily in canonical relation to one another. However, Star Wars treats canon very differently, in that everything that exists right now is canon.
Yes.
It exists. Now, some things are more canon than other things. So if like something like, for instance, in Bad Batch, they kind of retold Order 66 and Kanan's story. And so, the Bad Batch version is more canon than the version in the Kanan comic, but they're all canon. And what I like to say, it's all a certain point of view, right? Everyone has a different perspective.
The Obi-Wan method, from what I told you, is truth from a certain point of view.
And we're seeing it from Bad Batch's perspective versus Kanan's perspective, him telling it in first person in the comics. That's my personal theory on that. But, the comic books exist in the same universe as the games, as the novels, as the TV shows, as the movie. It all coincides. So it is very complex telling stories in the Star Wars universe, especially if something changes, because I've had things where, like, multiple times where we would be working on a series for a long time and then the actor quit.
Oh, geez.
Or we're not making this movie anymore. And so, okay, well, all this thing that you've spent months and months working on is scrapped. No one's ever going to see it or hear of it. And it's frustrating, but them's the breaks.
Yeah. So with like Star Wars, we'll say, do they ever give you like inside, hey, this is what's going to probably happen in this show or this? Can you kind of make that reflect in the comic books then, or at that time? So when you're working on Star Wars, Darth Vader, obviously we hadn't gotten the sequel movies yet. Did they give you anything to work off of as far as those when you're looking at, the comics
spoilers?
Like this? Yeah.
I mean, we got to read scripts. We would go we, would read treatments, see, style guide stuff. Like we're very in the know. Obviously under like a million NDAs, but
we've heard about Kevin, I guess that's Marvel with the Kevin Feige burner.
We've got the snipers on your house already, so.
But we're very, very in the know, and there would be things where they would make asks of us to be like, oh, we're trying to do this thing in Rebels, like, can we start like seeding this alien species in, or oh, this ship is going to change, like blah blah blah, all of this stuff, or there's also sometimes, which this is kind of the MCU method, where they know something is going to appear in an episode of a television on this certain day, but we don't know that. But they know that our comic is releasing around that time. So they'll be like, oh, use this character or do this thing. And then like it all like is planned when it comes out. So there's a lot of that like behind the scenes stuff happening. But yeah, for when it came to like the movies and all of the stuff, like we were very in the know and would get like quarterly or bi-yearly like walkthroughs of the like, this is what we're finding on a macro
that makes sense.
level. Yeah. So we could like sort of plan kind of around that. And that's kind of how really any big brand works. Like I'm working on Star Trek right now, and it's very similar in that I just got like, here's the release dates for the whole next year's worth of like things.
Ooh,
I'm going to come back to that.
A whole other ball of wax
I was going to say, I was going to come back to that because the one thing we want to know is obviously you helped create, Chrysanthemum. So how big of like excitement or surprise when he shows up in both, because they worked together in the comic books back a while ago, and all of a sudden he appears in the show. So was that kind of like a surprise to you, or did they tip you off beforehand?
That was a huge surprise. It was actually a huge surprise to like my contact at Lucasfilm too. Like there's one person that I work with very closely at Lucasfilm who kind of like, he's their main touch point internally for the comics. And like, even he didn't know, because like that wasn't affecting anything ongoing in any of the stories. Like we weren't using Chrysanthemum, and I don't think anyone else was at the time. And so like, it's no surprise to me that he showed up, and that, ever since like he appeared, ever since like Dr. Aphra and the murder bots were created, people internally at Lucasfilm were like, oh, tell us more about them. Right. And we've seen them appear in toys and like all these other things. So like for me, I'm just like, it's only a matter of time. I don't think I was expecting it in Book of Boba Fett. So like when he showed up, like I like couldn't mentally process it.
Leonardo meme.
I was thinking the same thing, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Just the Leo meme right there.
Like I'm sitting there, like I'm tearing up. I'm getting like super emotional. And I think I tweeted one day, I was like, I got really emotional watching today's Book of Boba Fett, not wanting to spoil anything for, for people who haven't watched it. And I got all these replies like, oh my gosh, me too. The scene at the end with blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, you and I are watching two very different episodes.
Look, that's cute that you think you know. However, well, yeah, I mean, it's as a character that you created, and Star Wars is arguably the biggest property out there, besides the MCU and things. So like to see somebody that you had a hand in just show up out of nowhere in something like that, it's just, that's got to feel great.
And to have a major role, and to like, also they got him right. Like that's any like mama's, like moment.
He didn't
is like,
look just like the cartoon. His head was slightly different shaped. How dare they?
But like, he shows up and I'm like, oh my God, he looks so good. But oh no, what if they mess him up? Right. It's just like that conflicting, thing. But like, no, like I have no complaints whatsoever. He's so perfect. Like absolutely killed it. Carrie Jones, who played him, you're amazing. Just so cool.
That is,
and I think we'll see more of him.
I think so too. That was my first thing when I saw him. I was like, man, the detail that they put into that costume, into that puppet, he's coming back. Like this is not going to be a one and done.
Right. This isn't the Star Wars Christmas special.
Yeah.
So, all right, you're working on Star Trek right now. So are you a bigger Star Wars fan or Star Trek fan? Because there's always that internal debate. Obviously, everybody's always like, you're a Trekkie, but you like Star Wars. Do you love one more than the other? Or are you just like, both of these things can equally exist in the world and I love them? You're both my children. Yeah.
So, I mean, because I've invested so much of my recent life into Star Wars, I would say, professionally too, like so much of my career has been Star Wars focused. So, I definitely am a bigger Star Wars fan, but I grew up on TNG. Like I grew up on, and they're very extremely different franchises, and they accomplished very, very different things. And so they definitely can both exist, for sure. I don't think they're competitors in any way, shape, or form aside from just internet feuds.
Nerds can never be happy. What is wrong with us?
They cannot. But yeah, no, I love Star Trek a lot, and I'm having a lot of fun. Like I recently have been like going back and like started like watching everything release order, which is a lot, but it's been fun to get to do as an adult, to like really start from the
like
ground
William
up.
Shatner.
Oh yeah, I'm starting TOS and working my way, like everything release order, except for Lower Decks. I watched all of that in like a day. But
Nice.
but yeah, like I've been watching the new shows and the new films, like the Kelvin stuff and then Disco Picard and all that. I've been watching it since they released. So getting to have my hand in two of the biggest like space franchises.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nerddom is like pretty cool.
Well, it from the second,
100%.
your first jobs into the editorial world, you got Marvel, Star Wars, and now you're at Star Trek. It's like you hit the holy trinity almost as far as it goes. Like that's got to be. Did you
What's
ever
left,
really
Doctor
think?
Who?
Yeah, like coming out of college to say, "Hey, I'm changing career paths," and now all of a sudden looking back, what was the moment for you that was like, "Wow, I made it, I did it," or have you not quite reached that yet?
Oh
She's
no,
still collecting
like,
stones.
Yeah. No, I mean, my first week at Marvel, when like the first like editorial job I had was to write an opening crawl, because that was the recap pages for the Star Wars books was like the traditional opening crawl, and like when I had to like sit down and do that in the same day, also hop on the phone with Mark Wade and give notes, and then get pages in from John Cassaday. Like that was a moment where I was just like, oh my god, like who hired this imposter?
Like, who are you? Why am I here? Do I belong? Like, yeah, that's gotta be kind of
when are they going to find out I shouldn't be here?
When are they going to find out that I am a fraud? Exactly. And then, like the second had to have been when I got to go to the public opening night of Star Wars and watch everyone else watch it for the first time. Like that was a really cool moment for me, because by that point, not to brag, but like by that point, I had known what the story is for a whole year. I got to go to the premiere of it, like, but the public opening was going to be like my third or fourth time seeing the film, but like getting to sit in that theater and watch everyone else watch it for the first time was one of the coolest experiences. And I don't think there's much that can top that. Man,
I still remember seeing it for the first. I was in Qatar of all places, spending a nice 6-month vacation, and I like waited at the theater because it was like first come first serve. Because on a military base, it's like, so I waited 7 hours to get to see it.
Oh my God!
I saw it in just that public perception. Yeah, everybody's walking out is buzzing, and it's definitely probably going to be different than a bunch of Hollywood types, air quotes, versus just general people off the street just flying about it. It probably feels, you're just like, wow.
Yeah, I'll never forget, like one of my favorite things was just like there was a little girl sitting in front of us, and like getting to see like this is her first Star Wars movie. Like this is her first like experience in theaters with Star Wars, and just like everything was just like oh my God, like everything was so emphatic, and like the best response was spoilers, skip ahead 30 seconds if you haven't seen Force Awakens. But at the end, when Rey, finds Luke and is approaching Luke and is about to like, hand him the lightsaber. And he turns around and like, flips his hood. This girl goes, oh my God, he has a beard.
Everybody else is like, it's Luke Skywalker, but she's just like, he's got a beard. It's the little things.
That's adorable.
That is amazing. Oh man.
So I know we've talked about all the big stuff though, but I mean, you've worked on things that aren't just huge franchises as well. So what's been your favorite thing to work on that hasn't been, something Disney now owns and Star Trek?
Yeah.
Do they not own something? Because I'm pretty sure at this point they even own me in my house.
Give them a little bit. Oh my gosh. Getting to work on all the creator-owned stuff that I get to do is so fun, and it's a different challenge than like a brand IP, because we get to establish our own rules, and there's a lot more there's a lot of freedom, but there's a lot more pressure too, to create something good that's going to stand out, that people are going to want to pick up. and like Redlands, which is a horror story about witches in Florida, by Jordan Belair and Vanessa Del Rey.
I'm in Florida.
Well, definitely check it out if you haven't. But it's definitely a book I'm very, very proud of. Right now I'm working on Time Before Time, which is a time travel crime story by Declan Shalvey, Roy McConville, Joe Palmer, through Image that is really cool. The premise of that is gangs in the future don't own territory, they own time periods. And so like there's this gang called the Syndicate who owns the 22nd century and anytime, and you smuggle people back to the past for a better life because shit gets pretty fucked up in the future.
Do you remember the days when the future was like bright and everything, and then slowly we turned to the future?
Yeah, it's not in this book.
It's like every futuristic story, it's all dystopian now.
Yeah. But so that one is really cool. We actually today, the day that we're recording this, issue 11, which is the final issue of our second arc, just came out. So check it out. There's 2 trades you can pick up and get all caught up on before arc 3 starts. And then also today on sale is the first issue of a brand new Create Your Own series called Slumber by Tyler Burton Smith, who is a writer most known for the most recent Chucky films.
That was a good one too.
Thank you. On his
With
behalf,
Luke Skywalker.
But
yeah.
But Vanessa Cardinale is the artist on that, and it's about a dream hunter. She goes into your nightmares and literally kills your nightmares. But there happens to be an entity that's hopping from person to person and is a serial killer, and so she's chasing them down through people's dreams. It's really cool and super fun. And then what also just got announced to come out next month is a book by Christian Ward and Patrick Reynolds called Bloodstained Teeth, which I call a crossover between David Bowie and vampires. So yeah, get to do a lot of different crazy things, and none of them are in space. So
I'm a sucker for like horror type comics anyways. So especially, you're working with Image and things. I love what Image does as well. So I'm going to be grabbing, especially the 2 trades that are out for, good stuff.
I'm a sucker for Robert Kirkman, so that's all Image.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of fun.
Well,
before we wrap up, is there anything else? I stole your line, Matt. I'm sorry.
No, I told you it's been a day. Go ahead, run with it.
Yes, you did say it's been a day, but I mean, we could keep you on here forever. But anything else you want to mention, and then you can just tell everybody where to find you.
Yeah. I mean, definitely check out all the comics I listed before. Even if you're not into Star Trek and don't think you'd be into Star Trek, I promise you'll be into some of these comics we're about to announce. We're about to announce a really, really cool lineup that my goal is to turn even the least Star Trek fan into a Star Trek fan. Some of the cool things we're going to do. And then I am venturing back out into comic shows, comic conventions this year. So I will be traveling all across the country doing a bunch of different shows. Definitely check out my Twitter for more information on that. But first up, you can find me at Calgary Fan Expo in Canada, April 21st through 23rd, 24th. I don't know. I'll be there. Come find me. And I'll be announcing a bunch of other shows on my website and socials. So
are you going to Salt Lake Comic Con?
No.
Because that's the only one that's close to me. Dang it.
MegaCon in Orlando is a good one.
But yeah, so you can find me at Heather Antos on Twitter. Woo.
Sweet. Well, thank you. Seriously, appreciate taking your time and hanging out with us. And I know, like Lauren said, I could have just talked about, Star Wars and Marvel for hours, but it's really cool getting to hear about the other projects that are coming out because everybody focuses on the big things. And one of the best parts of doing this show is finding a lot of the stories that we wouldn't have otherwise. So really appreciate you taking the time. And we're going to jump into Letters of the Editor in a minute. So Heather, thanks once again, and we'll see everybody else in a second. Welcome back. That was Heather Antos, and great interview. We appreciate her time. Now, before we wrap it up, we have letters to the editor. Stacy, I apologize. You've sent this in like weeks ago, and we just haven't gotten to it, but we did now. So if you're listening, shout out to you. And she asks, if we were a superhero and can have any other hero as a sidekick, who would it be and why? And then the same question goes for if we were a bad guy. So I'll kick us off. If I were a superhero and say I had a lot of powers and badass abilities, to be honest, I would pick the Green Arrow as my sidekick because he's very snarky, very sarcastic, very just ridiculous in how he acts.
Wait,
and
you can pick a hero to be your sidekick? I thought we had to pick a sidekick to be our sidekick.
If we were a superhero and can have any other hero as a sidekick, who would it be and why?
All right.
So I'm going Green Arrow because he's rich and he seems like a really cool guy to go ahead and get drunk with. So I'd go out and I'd drink some beers with him because, again, he's sure Batman too, but Batman's also who he is under the mask. Like the mask, Batman is who Batman is.
He doesn't seem fun to hang out with.
He's fake as shit on the outside, and he's always going to be just, Alfred, you're not my dad. And so I personally would love to hang out with the Green Arrow and have him as my sidekick. He's got a lot of cool arrows, and he seems like a good guy when you're out there fighting bad guys, that he's just always upbeat and positive.
I mean, Hawkeye's got a lot of cool arrows, too. He has pin arrows.
Who would you choose as a hero?
Right, well, I at first was thinking Bucky because I was thinking of sidekicks. But if we could pick any hero we would want, I would say Wolverine because you can use him as a human shield.
That's fair.
He can drink all the beer at the bar. We'd have a great time at the bar. And when you're close with Wolverine, he'll do anything he can to protect you, even though actually people closest to him tend to die. Whatever. Fuck
That's
it.
true.
Yeah, I'm going Wolverine. I'll take the risk.
All right,
maybe my
fair.
superpowers are healing too. Or like Rogue, and then I can just grab onto him and heal.
That's fair. That's okay. What if you were a villain? Who would your sidekick be if you were a villain?
See, again, I was thinking sidekick villains. And when I thought that, I was thinking the lady that is the Grand Master's sidekick that just like is because she's funny, even though she's not funny. And she just like kind of does whatever he says. But if I could pick any villain, my favorite villain would have to be, who the hell's my favorite villain? See, usually I think about these beforehand. Tough. I'm like, I'm going to do this one on a whim. And it's the hardest one we've gotten.
Yes, this one is, especially because it's like villains. All right, that's tough. That is a tough one.
Ooh, Agatha Harkness.
All right.
I can't do that?
You can you can choose whomever you want.
You seemed like I couldn't.
No, you can choose
now,
whomever
as far
you
as
want.
comic book of Agatha wouldn't be that much fun, but TV show Agatha would, because comic book Agatha is, older and she's babysitting the kids and she's it seems more matter of fact from the little bit I've read. But TV, like Catherine O'Hare Agatha, should be a hoot and a half.
See, it's tough with this one because you can't just choose a villain who's the strongest because they're always more narcissistic and they're more likely to stab you in the back. So if they're your sidekick, you're not safe. So this is tough.
But that's the problem with all villains. And Agatha's not always a villain in the comics either, but she is obviously a villain in WandaVision.
Right. I mean, it would be very easy to choose, the strongest person out there, like, Hunter Zolomon, Eobard Thawne, Brainiac, anybody like that. But I feel
that's why the villains lose.
That's what I'm saying. Like they just get in their own way and they can't team up together. So I think for me, man, this is tough. This one is really hard, really, really hard. But I think that I would ultimately choose. Does Loki count? No, I don't like Loki as a team
Loki's
up either.
A villain.
Loki, yeah, but he would probably stab you in the back. You can't trust him.
Yes.
Dang.
That is true.
Who do I choose that's going to go out there and cause some mischief and mayhem with me? Man.
Well, I mean, did she clarify that it has to be another villain?
You know what? I think that I would choose Poison Ivy because I want to save the Earth. And our goal would just to be save the Earth.
She just make more plants.
And also, she's pretty hot. So you know what? Maybe we can get a little something going on the side. Who knows?
So like a power couple is what
We'd
you're
be
going
a power
for.
couple. That's right. I'd be her sidekick.
Evil
though,
power couple.
because she'd strangle me with some vines or something in my sleep. I don't know.
Is that what you're into? I mean,
I don't know.
that could
Choke
go
me,
either
Daddy.
way.
Is that all you
Erotica
got?
asphyxiation via vines.
I don't know. I guess we'll find out when I'm being choked out in my sleep for accidentally cutting a leaf or something like that. Because you can choose
You
Bane,
ate
but
a
Bane would just
salad.
strangle me too, and not in a good way. That turns me on. So, yeah, okay.
I mean,
I'll
if you're going to die, what is it? Oh, yeah. In The Boys, when they did like, how would you rather go out? Asphyxiation?
yeah,
Or I forget what the other one was. Yeah, you might as well go out doing something
that'd be
you
fine.
love.
I guess that'd be cool. Yeah, I'll just say poison ivy for now because we'd save the world, the earth. So, assuming I have a lot of superpowers, that is. Like, it depends on my superpower abilities. Like, that's all it's based on. Like, am I a strong superpower person, or am I like the fucking Riddler, where all I am is smart? You know, there's so many different variables here. I don't know how I could choose.
I mean, all Iron Man is smart.
Yeah, but he has tech and weapons. The Riddler has nothing. You know what I'm saying? So, like, what am I working with here? What kind of superpowers
So he was smart
am I
and born
working with?
into money. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, what am I working with here? I don't know. I hope we answered that pretty well, and I hope you got some entertainment out of that. So next week, or tune in this week, we have our Creators Corner, which is a brand new kind of episode. I don't know if it's Creators Corner, just because I think another podcast might have that name already locked down, and I don't want to be that person to rip it off. I don't have a name for it yet.
Bar?
Might be Oblivion Bar. I think they have Creators Corner locked down.
Like Chris's Corner.
We're going to have a name for this, but we like to do bonus episodes that highlight really cool creators and the things that they're doing and to give them their platform. So for the very first one, we will have Joe Bablazzo this week from Heretic Party Pod to talk about his upcoming comic book. So make sure to tune in for that. It was a wicked good time to hang out with Joe, and we can't wait to discuss all the things. He's a fantastic artist. He does all the artwork for Woodland Empire, who are some real homies of ours. Make sure to check him out. Check that episode out. Share with a friend. Do all sorts of great stuff. And until next week, we will see you later, friends. Cheers.
Hey everyone. I don't have much time, so I'm just going to get right to the point. My name is Jordan Arith, and I host a podcast called Hop Heroes. Myself and two of my good friends discuss comic book stories while drinking delicious craft beer. You can find us on...
What's up, bro? What's going on here?
Oh, hey Zach. JR, how's it going?
It's going well, man. What are you up to?
Oh, nothing much. Just talking to myself, practicing lines. You know the drill.
Oh, really? Because it sounded like you were recording the promo without us. And I'm just really confused as to why you would go and do something like that.
I wasn't recording without you guys. And why did you knock when you came on? It's a podcast. That doesn't even make any fucking sense.
Hello, everyone. This is Zach Barlow, the host of Hop Heroes podcast.
You're not the host.
I am joined weekly by my counterparts, Jordan and JR, and we will break down Great Brew and discuss the comic book universe. You can find me every Wednesday on all podcast platforms, and these guys will be there as well, I guess.
This is probably why he didn't want you on the promo, Zach.
I'm the host of the show.